The first season of True Detective is considered one of the greatest works of television ever created. I believe much of its greatness comes from the psychological depths of its characters. More specifically, one in particular that I'm sure you can guess who, if you've seen the show. But each of the main characters embodies a certain archetype from which we can learn from. So, let's begin. To start, I'll only be going into minor detail on Marty Hart and his wife, Maggie. While these two characters have a part to play in the psychological unfolding of the season, the spotlight really is on Russ Cohle and his journey. Russ is perhaps the most complex character of the season. He is one that embodies multiple jungian archetypes, while at the same time undergoing a profound psychological transformation as the show progresses. Firstly, Russ functions as the outsider, both socially and philosophically. From the start of the show, we see that he's a figure who doesn't quite fit into any collective. His colleagues see him as strange and unrelatable. From his investigative methods to philosophical discussions, and even his general demeanor, he exists outside societal norms, rejecting traditional values and religion. We even see how much of a loner he is through his intentional decision to live in a barren apartment, with no real personal ties or relationships. Russ has chosen to live a life of exile, separating himself from emotional attachments as a result of his past trauma. In mythology, the outsider archetype is often one that stands outside the world, only to observe and critique. His deep cynicism and monologues are on par with that of a prophetic figure, oftentimes revealing hard truths for those around him. But being an outsider comes at a high cost, because Russ is unwilling to conform to bureaucratic systems. He only further pushes himself into isolation. Carl Jung saw the outsider as a figure who can access deeper truths, but at the cost of alienation. Russ's understanding of human nature and societal evil is both his gift and curse. He has chosen the path of individuation through exile, meaning he will seek understanding his own psyche by means of cutting out illusions. Secondly, Russ is what is known in Jungian psychology as the seeker. The seeker is concerned with discovering and understanding deeper truths. They are on a perpetual journey towards knowledge. As a detective, Russ excels because of his deeper understanding of human nature. He can see beyond conventional morality and societal illusions. His approach to investigation reflects his intuitive, pattern-seeking mind. While his partner Marty relies on social intelligence and conventional police methods, Russ sees beyond surface-level reality, deciphering deeper connections between events. His ability to recognize human deception is not just a skill, but a necessity for a seeker. He cannot afford illusions, whether personal or societal. But for Russ, it's not just about solving crime. It's about understanding the nature of existence by frequently questioning reality, time, morality, and the purpose of life. His beliefs can be traced back to some of the greatest philosophers and mythology. Take, for example, Nietzsche. Russ embodies much of Nietzschean skepticism, rejecting illusions of morality and societal norms, or his ideas about time and suffering and its similarity to Buddhist detachment and Gnostic dualism, where the material world is seen as corrupt and evil, or in mythology where seekers will embark on difficult journeys to find ultimate truth, as in the quest for the Holy Grail. Russ embodies this journey in a sort of spiritual detective work. However, the seeker is also vulnerable to self-destruction. Rust's existential burden leads him to substance abuse, hallucinations, and reckless behavior. His deep knowledge isolates him, and his relentless pursuit of truth threatens to consume him. Jung warned of the seeker's dilemma. Those who seek ultimate knowledge often risk falling into despair, madness, or annihilation. His past trauma, or the death of his daughter, shapes how he perceives the world. He makes the assertion that time is a flat circle, a nihilistic perspective that's indicative of his internal suffering and futility. In Jungian psychology, Rust is known as the wounded healer, or one that experiences deep hurts, but gains wisdom through suffering. While he's been stripped of personal attachments, he's been gifted a piercing insight into human darkness. His hallucinations, philosophical ruminations, and detachment from reality symbolize a sort of shamanic descent, where his suffering will ultimately lead to deeper understanding of the world. Rust has an obsession with darkness. He constantly speaks about it, but he's also facing his own darkness, his shadow. The shadow integration is a critical process for his own growth. While he strongly believes in nihilism, he continually fights for justice. Before we go into Rust's final arc and transformation, let's touch base on Marty and Maggie Hart. Marty represents the everyman struggling with his own contradictions. While he projects the image of a respectable family man and law enforcer, his actions betray his internal chaos. His character is built around the persona, or the social mask he wears as a husband, father, and detective. However, his shadow, or his unchecked aggression, infidelity, and self-deception, frequently disrupts this fake persona. He insists on being morally righteous, often scolding Rust for his philosophical views, while believing himself to be a dutiful husband and father. But he's a walking contradiction, choosing to cheat on his wife, drink excessively, and even exhibit violent tendencies. His shadow is fully at odds with his persona, causing deep internal conflict. Marty's relationship with women, from his wife to his mistresses and even his daughters, reflect his failure to integrate his anima, the feminine aspect of his psyche. Instead of engaging with his anima through introspection or emotional connection, Marty projects his desires outward, indulging in infidelity rather than addressing his dissatisfaction with his marriage. Maggie, in this situation, represents the wise woman, who calls out Marty's self-deception, ultimately separating from him when he refuses to change. Marty's anger and impulsivity increase as his life unravels. In one instance, his violent outburst against the young men who exploited his daughter showcases the uncontrollable emergence of his shadow. He cannot maintain the facade he puts up. It slowly starts to disintegrate. Rust and Marty's partnership is a profound study in psychological duality. Marty serves as the ego. He clings to order, societal norms, and conventional morality, even when he fails to uphold them. Rust, on the other hand, represents the darkness, forbidden thoughts, and truths that Marty refuses to face. Jung described individuation as a kind of psychological alchemy, a process of transformation through opposites. Rust and Marty's constant conflict mirrors this, but by the end, both characters have changed. Marty is humbled, forced to confront his own flaws, while Rust, after years of nihilism, finds a glimmer of meaning. But more on that in a bit. Maggie Hart serves as a crucial figure in the psychological journeys of both Marty and Rust, representing different archetypal roles. To Marty, Maggie is the anima projection, his idealized notion of the perfect wife and mother, But when she no longer conforms to this, Rust crumbles. She forces him to confront his hypocrisy, showing how the anima often acts as a truth revealer in a man's psyche. By leaving Marty, she catalyzes his eventual self-reflection and transformation. Now we arrive to Rust's confrontation with the killer and his final arc. For clarity, this is best understood in 3 stages: his psychological descent into nihilism, his confrontation with Carcosa as a symbolic death, and his near-death experience as a moment of rebirth. Recall that Rust described time as a flat circle. He dismisses religion, relationships, and societal structures as delusions, viewing them as desperate attempts to avoid confronting the abyss of existence. This perspective is deeply rooted in trauma. His shadow self, filled with grief over the death of his daughter, has left him incapable of experiencing joy, meaning, or human connection. The strict nihilism becomes a form of psychological armor, protecting him from pain, but also trapping him in despair. Jung believed that a one-sided existence leads to psychic imbalance. Rust's rigid embrace of shadow, without any acknowledgement of light, prevents him from achieving psychological wholeness. He exists in a state of existential paralysis, where he can analyze suffering but cannot move beyond it. The ultimate test for Rust as an outsider and seeker is his confrontation with Carcosa, or the hidden world of ritualistic horror he and Marty eventually uncover. Carcosa is not merely a physical space. It is a manifestation of the collective shadow, the place where all of society's suppressed horrors reside. Jung described the collective shadow as a repository of humanity's darkest instincts: violence, abuse, corruption, and primal savagery. In True Detective, this shadow takes the form of systemic evil, where powerful men engage in unspeakable crimes, protected by layers of institutional corruption. When Rust enters Carcosa in the finale, he is symbolically entering the deepest layers of the collective unconscious. Inside Carcosa, Rust finally comes face to face with the darkness he has spent his whole life pursuing. The killer, or Yellow King, embodies pure, unintegrated shadow, a man fully consumed by darkness. Unlike Rust, the Yellow King has fully surrendered to chaos, embracing evil without question. This confrontational climax marks a profound shift in Rust's character. While he is nearly killed, Rust experiences a near-death vision. He describes feeling as though he is being pulled into a realm of light, where he sees his daughter and feels the presence of something beyond what he believes. This moment marks the final stage of his individuation process. His near-death experience is a symbolic portrayal of death and rebirth. Experiencing his daughter in the form of light convinces him that darkness is not the only truth. It's not that this moment disproves his past beliefs, but rather expands them. Even when faced with the darkest of dark, Rust chooses to believe in something greater, the light. In many ways, his experience parallels ancient myths of descent and return. Just as Orpheus ventured into the underworld, just as Christ descended into darkness before resurrection, Rust has gone to the depths of human depravity and returned with newfound wisdom. Rust's journey aligns with Jung's model of the transcendent function, where opposites within the psyche, or in this case, nihilism and meaning, reconcile to create a higher state of awareness. For Rust Cohle, the journey was never about just solving a case, but rather, it was about confronting the deepest horrors of existence and finding, against all odds, a reason to keep going.